Dr. Chris Labos is on the line. We're going to talk about a story that I heard actually Dr. Mitch talking about the other day. Chris, how are you?
Not too bad. How are you?
Pretty good, thanks. So, look, hypnosis is nothing new in terms of, for some people anyway, you don't want to get a needle or even little things, right? And hypnosis works. So I want to deal with this story because this is on a much bigger level, I guess, right? With the idea that for some people, hypnosis over general anesthesia, and I know some people are wary about general anesthesia. First of all, how prevalent is this? And is this an option for people, do you think?
Well, I mean, sort of. I have to say, I think the headline in the article was a little bit misleading because the type of stuff that they're talking about here, they're talking about using it for people who are getting, a lumbar puncture, a blood test, having a catheter put in, stuff that is uncomfortable, but not generally speaking extremely, extremely painful, and certainly not things that you would generally give somebody general anesthesia for, right? So if anybody who's ever had a lumbar puncture, it's not a trivial thing to do, but it's generally just done with sort of freezing the skin. We generally don't give people pain medication for that. Same with a Foley catheter. You put that little numbing gel at the tip of the catheter so that it hurts a little bit less.
Okay.
But, you don't put somebody to sleep for something like that. So I think you sort of have to understand what hypnosis is and what its purpose is. I mean, when you get away from the Vegas lounge act stuff that you see on TV where people are clucking like chickens and all that, I mean, hypnosis essentially comes down to, to characterize it a little bit, like relaxation techniques. Like you're getting somebody to visualize a calming scene. You're getting them to breathe deeply. You're basically getting people to sort of calm down. So it's for people who, might have a little bit of anxiety, a little bit of stress associated with the procedure, and it's helping them tolerate the procedure a little bit better. But it's not actually going to take away pain. Like if you had a broken bone or if you needed like surgery, like actual surgery where somebody was cutting into you, you would have to get pain medication. Otherwise, you would literally just be suffering.
So just to understand that, I understand for the minor stuff you initially described, right? It can hurt for like a minute or something, and it's manageable, it's tolerable, right?
Yeah.
But for what you just said now, my understanding is, at least from reading this, and maybe that's the issue here, if you're one of those people who absolutely do not want, and I know people like this who are, no, not doing general anesthesia, I don't care, I'll do anything but. Could hypnosis work for someone if you convince yourself, if your mindset is that, you know what, this could work for me because I know the other thing won't? Could that not work?
I think it's incredibly unlikely that it would. Now, it depends for what now? Now, here's the other thing, too, just excuse me, just so we don't go too far off topic. General anesthesia is not the only option available to you. Like a lot of surgeries are done with a regional block, or you don't have to be completely under for a lot of procedures, right? Mm-hmm. So you can get away, because you're right, general anesthesia does have risks associated with it. If you're going to go for standard surgery, there's usually not that much an alternative, but if you're just going for something that can be done with local freezing, obviously the preference is going to be to do that, and that would be more or less standard operating procedure in most hospitals in any case. The question is always this: can you do something noxious to a person in the sense that you were going to do something that would normally cause pain? Could you convince the person that they are not experiencing that and therefore they wouldn't feel pain? I don't know that that's necessarily true. Like the minute you were to cut into somebody's abdomen to take out their appendix, if they took no pain medication, I'm pretty certain they would they would feel that. So I don't think that you can completely remove pain simply through the power of the mind.
Okay.
And I mean, that's why the way it's, being talked about is really for these, very minor procedures that are more uncomfortable than painful. If we can,
we're not talking about someone having open heart surgery and being hypnotized. I get that. It's funny though. You describe the appendix situation. I was with someone once who actually had to have their appendix removed, the emergency right in the middle of the night kind of thing. And as you say that, I think to myself, hypnosis is the solution to this. Maybe that's not, but if you can convince yourself, the mind's pretty incredible, right? And if you can convince yourself that the pain is not going to be as severe, right? Mm-hmm. You might feel a little pain, but maybe another person would feel much, much more pain because they're not thinking the same way about the pain as you are.
Well, I suppose that is theoretically possible, right? Because how we experience pain varies, person to person. Some people have a very minor insult and feel a lot of pain. Other people have fairly extensive injuries and they don't feel pain as much. So pain is a very subjective thing. I think the minute you start getting into surgeries, though, where you're cutting into tissue and causing damage, That would be a very, very hard thing to just think away. Now, there is a way to settle this, Aaron. If you are game, what I will do is I will come down to studios, we will hypnotize you, and then I will punch you repeatedly in the face, and then you can tell me if that hurts or not. I'm willing to do that live on air, and I think the listeners would enjoy hearing that.
That's awfully big of you, Chris. I do appreciate the offer, but sadly, I fall into the category of those who do not, in fact, take pain all that well. If I can take a pill or do something else, I'd rather just go ahead and do that. Yep. So again, I appreciate the offer, but it's not for me. Perhaps one of our producers would like to try that.
I will speak to Alice. Maybe she's game.
Listen, I would just ask you a question. When you talk about the theatrics of Vegas with hypnosis, right? We all remember, if you're old enough to remember Ravine or whoever it happened to have been. Yeah. Do you believe in that stuff?
No, because the reality is when you actually go and survey people later, what generally happens when you pull somebody on stage, there is always the pressure to sort of play along and make the act look good. So if you're on stage and the hypnotist is telling you cluck like a chicken, it is the power of suggestion, but it's not as if they've done anything to your brain. It's like people know you're on stage, the audience is expecting a show, they know they're expecting you to cluck like a chicken, so people kind of just play along. You see this with magic tricks as well, where they get a volunteer up from the audience. Even if the magic trick goes off the rails, the volunteer will almost never call out the magician to say, you got the card wrong, because we have this natural tendency built into our brain to be like, don't make a fuss, just play along. And so a lot of that is what's happening there. So it's not really like TV or the movies. You can't sort of use hypnotism to like rob a bank or make people fall in love with you. That's not really how it works.
Careful the second one. I've used hypnosis to have someone fall in love with me. So that you take that off the books, Chris. Dr. Chris Labos, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. You take care.
And for bursting everyone's bubble, believing that these guys on stage with hypnosis, that it actually works. Things you learn on this show.